Since ESAYAS came to power, most of his own Eritrean People's Liberation Front party has continued to support him and implement his policies. But the president never allowed any internal competition or questioning of his authority. In the years after independence, he grew more and more authoritarian.
He became very insecure with his own close friends for 35 years. So to me, it's simply a lack of confidence in himself and mistrusting his own friends.
That nervousness has kept ESAYAS in a constant state of fear that he may be overthrown. He has refused to hold elections. The constitution has not been implemented. Eritreans are being thrown in prison without trial, and thousands of people are continuing to be forced into military service.
It's one of the most repressive and abusive governments in the world. There is no independent political opposition in the country. There's no space for independent civil society. Anyone who speaks out independently is liable to end up in prison for years, sometimes imprisoned under the sun for years at a time, actually in shipping containers in the city of Asmara.
Yet despite all this, ESAYAS still claims to be working towards democracy.
We need to go for a sustainable political process that brings stability and guarantees development and brings a change in the quality of life for people here. I have nothing to benefit by postponing a political process.
Kofi Annan says that in order to progress, the Eritrean government should respect basic rules like any other nation.
We have to understand that countries can develop and be built on three solid pillars: security, peace and security, economic development, and respect for human rights and the rule of law.
Thousands of Eritreans have decided they can't wait any longer for democracy, and they're now pouring over the country's borders to Ethiopia and Sudan. But their arrival is by no means certain. Some perish along the way, and some are captured. Despite escaping to Sudan, Habtum is still too scared to be seen on camera.
I was trying to cross the border when soldiers caught me. I was thrown into an underground prison cell, tortured for betraying my country, and fed only pieces of bread in the morning and at night. At times the cells were so crowded we nearly suffocated. They only gave us medical help when we were close to death.
But ESAYAS refuses to accept that youngsters are choosing to leave. He says sinister forces are behind the exodus.
The CIA headquarters at Mama orchestrating the migration of young in this country, which is considered to be one way of weakening our capability to defend this nation.
From the beginning, ESAYAS' regime convinced Eritreans and the international community that it had the best interests of the country at heart. But one outsider noticed things weren't as they seemed.
It was a clear de-democratization of Eritrean institutions happening in 96-97. Again, international society failed to take note of this. Personally, I tried to address it with donor communities. Was again brushed aside. It was not allowed to raise a critical voice on what happened in Eritrea in the immediate post-liberation period.
Eritrea's former admirers in the international community watched as ESAYAS began to crack down on his opponents. The African Union's Human Rights Commission says it's been repeatedly denied access to Eritrea.
We have communicated with the government. At some point it appeared we might go, but we have not been given a specific date. So really, it's not for lack of trying. It's rather the lack on the part of the state to work with the Commission.
The US State Department lists Eritrea as one of the world's worst violators of religious freedom.
The situation in Eritrea is of concern, and we are disturbed by the human rights situation. What we see is unfortunate trends that suggest deterioration.
The European Commission has defended its recent decision to give a more than €100 million aid package to Eritrea after critics claimed the cash will only help to prop up the regime.
European Commission funding to the country has one main objective: to help its people and to improve their daily living conditions. To cut funding would impact seriously on the poorest and most vulnerable people of Eritrea. It could have serious humanitarian consequences.
Critics say that as a result of the outside world's indifference, ESAYAS' regime has been allowed to commit countless human rights abuses against its own people. ESAYAS justifies his authoritarian rule by claiming the country must remain prepared for conflict until a boundary dispute with Ethiopia is resolved. The two countries fought a border war between 1998 and 2000, and estimates of the numbers killed range from 80,000 to 140,000 people. Opponents say ESAYAS uses the unresolved border issue as an excuse to deny basic political rights. Opposition parties were once forbidden from organising meetings. Today, they're banned altogether. But it was not just those in the opposition who faced persecution. When some members of ESAYAS' own party spoke out, the response was swift.
September 18, 2001, he decided to incarcerate 11 of his top leaders, 2 of them, I believe, foreign ministers, who were just asking for some reform. Those people, as we speak now, nobody knows whether they're alive or dead.
ESAYAS says prisoners have been jailed to protect the country.
In our case, it's very small numbers, and we're not shy to say these are individuals who have done harm to the national security of this country. This has nothing to do with human rights.
Human Rights Watch is one of the world's leading organizations in its field.
Untold numbers of prisoners of conscience, absolutely. There is an elaborate network of prisons run by the government and by the military inside of Eritrea, and some of those are devoted almost entirely to journalists, political dissidents, members of